3 years. That's how long it's been since I lost my sister, Clara. A slick road, a telephone pole, and a phone call I was too angry to answer. That's all it took. Some nights when the silence in this place gets too loud, I can still hear it ringing. Another night shift, another eternity of silence. The hotel lobby's vast emptiness always gets to me. It's like the world outside just stops existing after midnight. The checkerboard floor stretches into infinity. The potted plants cast long, skeletal shadows, and the only sound is the hum of the vending machine. I'm a night auditor, a professional ghost. I watch over this silent, sleeping building. But tonight the silence feels different, heavier. I was doing my rounds, the usual loop, past the empty ballroom, its chandeliers wrapped in dusty shrouds. Down the West Wing hallway, where the carpet pattern makes you feel like you're sinking. That's when I hear it. A phone ringing. A faint, tinny sound coming from the hotel's closed bar. But there's no phone in there. Not anymore. My heart does a little trip hammer thing against my ribs. Hello? My voice sounds small, swallowed by the cavernous space. The ringing stops. I push the door open. The air is cold, thick with the smell of stale beer and something else, something like rain on cold asphalt. And that's when I see her. A woman sitting on a stool at the far end of the bar, her back to me. She's wearing a dark coat, the one my sister always wore, the one Clara was wearing the night of the accident. My throat closes up. It can't be. This is just sleep deprivation playing tricks on me. "Hey there," I manage, trying to keep my voice steady. The bar's closed. "We're not open for service." She doesn't turn around. "I know," she says. Her voice is clear, but it sounds like it's coming from far away, down a long tunnel. I'm waiting. A chill that has nothing to do with the cold air creeps up my spine. Waiting for what? She finally turns, and my blood runs cold. Her face is a blur, indistinct, like a memory you can't quite grasp. "For you to answer," she says, "I called, you know. That night I called and called." I swallow hard. This is wrong. So wrong. I remember that night, the fight we had, her storming out, my phone buzzing on the counter, and me too angry and stubborn to pick it up. The memory is so sharp it's like a shard of glass in my mind. "You really shouldn't be here," I insist, my voice cracking. She laughs, a sound with no humor in it. It's hollow, empty. "Where else would I be?" she asks, gesturing to the empty bar around her. "This is our place, remember? We used to sneak in here after hours." My breath catches in my chest. "Clara?" I whisper, the name a painful ghost on my tongue. The blur of her face sharpens, and for a horrifying second I see her clearly. It's my sister, but her eyes are wrong. They're too dark, too empty. She smiles, but it's not her smile. It's stretched, unnatural. "You left me," she says, her voice suddenly losing its distant tone. It's flat, accusatory. "You were supposed to answer the phone." The screech of tires, the shattering of glass, the wail of sirens. The memories I've spent 3 years burying come flooding back. The police officer at my door. The look on my parents' faces. Her car wrapped around a telephone pole. "I'm sorry," I choke out, tears blurring my vision. "Clara, I'm so sorry." She stands up from the stool, moving with a grace that isn't human. "Sorry isn't enough," she says, her voice echoing strangely in the huge, empty room. "You have to wait with me now. It's so lonely on that road." She takes a step towards me, into the shadows, and just vanishes. I stumbled back, my mind screaming. I ran. I didn't stop until I was back in the safety of the brightly lit lobby. But it doesn't feel safe anymore. I keep looking over my shoulder, expecting to see a woman in a dark coat. The hum of the vending machine sounds like a phone ringing now. The checkerboard floor feels like a long, dark road. I sit here behind the front desk, watching the security monitors. Every empty hallway, every vacant room looks like it's holding its breath, waiting. She said I have to wait with her. The sun won't be up for hours. I'm the night auditor. I'm a ghost in this place. And I think I'm not the only one anymore. I think my shift is never going to end. The night shift in a hospital has its own unique rhythm. The usual daytime chaos fades into a quiet hum of machines and the soft footsteps of the few staff on duty. I was a relatively new nurse, only a few months into my job at St. Jude's, a hospital that had been around for over a century. The older nurses would sometimes share stories, strange whispers about the third floor, particularly the now abandoned East Wing. They said it was haunted, a place where the air grew cold and shadows moved on their own. I always brushed it off as late-night fatigue and an overactive imagination. That is, until one Tuesday night in October. I was assigned to the pediatric ward on the second floor, directly below the old East Wing. It was a slow night. Most of the kids were stable and sleeping soundly. Around 2 a.m. I was at the nurse's station, charting, when I heard it. A faint, rhythmic thumping sound from directly above. Thump, thump, thump. It sounded like a small rubber ball being bounced on a hard floor. I looked over at Maria, the senior nurse on duty. She didn't seem to notice, her eyes focused on her computer screen. I tried to ignore it, telling myself it was just the building's old plumbing or the heating system kicking in. But the sound was too consistent, too deliberate. After about 10 minutes, it stopped. The silence that followed was almost more unnerving. I took a deep breath and went back to my work. About an hour later, I was doing my rounds, checking on a little boy named Leo who had a fever. As I stood by his bedside, the thumping started again. Thump, thump, thump. This time it was louder, more insistent. Leo stirred in his sleep, murmuring, "The boy is playing." My blood ran cold. I quickly checked his vitals and tucked him back in. When I returned to the nurse's station, I finally asked Maria, "Do you hear that? The bouncing sound?" She looked up, her expression unreadable for a moment. Then she sighed. "Oh, that's just Billy," she said, her voice low. "Don't worry about him. He's harmless." I must have looked completely bewildered because she elaborated. The story goes that about 50 years ago, a little boy named Billy died of pneumonia up on the third floor. He loved his little red rubber ball. They say he still wanders the halls up there, bouncing it. I stared at her, unsure if she was joking. But the look in her eyes was dead serious. "Just ignore it," she said firmly. "He never comes down here. As long as you don't go looking for him, you'll be fine." Her words did little to comfort me. For the rest of the night, the bouncing sound came and went, a constant, ghostly drumbeat from the floor above. Each time it started, my heart would pound in my chest. I kept picturing a small, shadowy figure in an old-fashioned hospital gown, bouncing a red ball in the dark, empty hallway. The night seemed to stretch on forever. A few weeks passed, and I got used to Billy's bouncing ball. It became part of the night's eerie soundtrack. I followed Maria's advice and did my best to ignore it. but my curiosity was an annoying thing. What was it really like up there? Was the story true? One night, the temptation became too much to bear. It was quiet. Maria was on her break, and the bouncing had just started. On a reckless impulse, I decided I had to see for myself. I took the staff elevator up to the 3rd floor. The doors slid open to a scene starkly different from the rest of the hospital. The air was heavy and stale. The lights were off, save for a single flickering emergency light at the far end of the corridor, casting long dancing shadows. A thick layer of dust covered everything. A yellow no entry sign was taped across the double doors leading to the east wing. My heart was hammering against my ribs, but I pushed through the doors. The moment I stepped into the east wing, the temperature dropped dramatically. I could see my breath misting in the air. The bouncing sound was much clearer here, echoing down the long, dark hallway. Thump, thump, thump. It seemed to be coming from the very last room on the left. Every instinct screamed at me to turn back, but I felt an inexplicable pull, as if I were being drawn toward the sound. My footsteps were unnaturally loud on the dusty linoleum floor. The doors to the old patient rooms were all ajar, dark voids on either side of me. With each step, the bouncing grew louder. Thump, thump, thump. It was right ahead. I reached the last room. The door was slightly open. I could see a sliver of the room inside, cloaked in near-total darkness. The bouncing stopped. The sudden, absolute silence was deafening. My hand trembled as I pushed the door open. The room was empty. A rusty metal bed frame stood against the far wall, a tattered mattress on top. A single small window, grimy with age, let in a sliver of moonlight. There was nothing else. No boy, no ball. I let out a shaky breath, a mix of relief and disappointment. It was just an old building, making strange noises after all. I felt foolish. I turned to leave, and that's when I saw it. Lying in the middle of the floor, right where I had been standing, was a small, faded red rubber ball. It hadn't been there a second ago. I swear it hadn't. My blood turned to ice. Before I could even process what I was seeing, the ball moved. It rolled slowly, deliberately, across the floor and stopped right at my feet. I couldn't breathe. My eyes darted around the dark room, searching for an explanation for anyone. The room was empty. Then, from the darkest corner of the room, a child's whisper slithered through the silence. "Want to play?" I didn't wait for a second invitation. I bolted. I ran faster than I ever have in my life, not daring to look back. I didn't stop until I was back in the bright lights of the second-floor nurse's station, gasping for air, my whole body shaking. Maria was there, her eyes wide with concern. "What's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost." I couldn't even speak. I just pointed upwards. She looked up, then back at me, and her expression soft, with a kind of sad understanding. "You went up there, didn't you?" she whispered. "I told you to leave him be. I never went back to the 3rd floor. I eventually transferred to a different hospital. But sometimes when I'm working the night shift and the halls fall quiet, I think I can still hear it, a faint, distant thumping. The sound of a little boy who just wants someone to play with. And I hope, for the sake of whoever is on duty, that they are wise enough to leave him alone." Most people think an empty mall at 3 a.m. is peaceful. It's not. It's a graveyard of mannequins and echoes, and after a while, your mind starts to play tricks on you. Or at least, That's what I told myself for the first 6 months. I'm a night security supervisor. My job is to sit in a booth with 12 monitors and walk a 3-mile perimeter every 2 hours. It's a job for people who like to be alone. But that night, I realized I wasn't nearly as alone as I thought. It started in the North Wing, near a department store that had been boarded up for years. I was watching the feed on camera 9 when I saw a movement in the reflection of a storefront window. It looked like a child running fast behind a row of mannequins. I leaned in, heart thumping. Kids breaking in for overnight challenges is a common headache, so I grabbed my radio and headed out. The mall at night has a very specific smell: floor wax, stale popcorn, and cold air. As I reached the North Wing, I clicked on my high-intensity flashlight. "Security, I know you're in here. Come out now and I won't call the cops," I shouted. My voice bounced off the glass walls and died in the distance. No answer. Then, from behind a plywood barricade, I heard a sound that made my skin crawl. It was the sound of a mechanical toy, one of those old cymbal-clapping monkeys winding up. I rounded the corner, expecting to find a teenager with a prank kit. Instead, I found a pile of old store fixtures. Sitting right on top was a toy monkey, its fur matted and gray with dust. It was clapping its cymbals rhythmically, even though it didn't have any batteries in it. I picked it up to stop the noise, and that's when the mall's intercom system hissed to life. A voice, distorted by static and sounding like it was recorded 50 years ago, came over the speakers. "Attention shoppers, the mall is now closing. Please make your way to the nearest exit. And Leo, don't forget your keys." I froze. My name is Leo. There is no way the automated closing announcement, which hadn't been programmed in a decade, should have known my name. I dropped the toy and radioed my partner at the desk. "Hey, you playing with the intercom?" Silence. "Marcus, copy?" Still nothing. I looked up at the nearest security camera. The little red light was blinking, meaning it was tracking me. I sprinted back to the security office. When I burst through the door, Marcus was gone. His coffee was still steaming on the desk. I looked at the monitors. On camera 9, I saw myself, or what looked like me, standing in the North Wing. But in the video, I wasn't alone. Standing directly behind me was a tall, thin figure with no face, draped in the tattered remains of a security uniform. It had its hand on my shoulder. I looked down at my own shoulder in the real world. There was a handprint there. It wasn't made of dirt or blood. It was a scorched mark, like the fabric of my shirt had been burned by an iron. I checked the playback on the monitors to find Marcus. I found him on camera 4, the basement exit. He was walking out the door with his eyes wide and vacant, carrying the same dusty toy monkey I had just seen in the North Wing. I didn't wait to see more. I grabbed my car keys and ran. As I drove out of the parking lot, I looked at the mall in my rearview mirror. Every single light in the building, thousands of neon signs and spotlights flickered on at once, blindingly bright. And standing in the main glass entrance was the figure in the tattered uniform, holding up a set of keys. My keys, the ones I thought were in my pocket. I checked my pocket. It was empty. I never went back for the keys, and I never went back for the job. Because when the intercom called my name, I realized the mall wasn't closing. It was inviting me to stay, permanently. Thanks for listening to our story. If you've had a similar experience, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more adventures into the unknown. Stay safe out there.